Blind Justice is a special segment that we run here on ATW, where Wade, a law school graduate, tells us a little bit more about the law, as well as our rights and responsibilities in society.
Anthony, I'm right here.
Oh, sorry, Wade, I'm sorry. It must have just slipped my mind after catching up with Sharon and Ian in that last segment.
Touche, Anthony, touche. Legally binding contracts are all around us, whether it's buying and selling real estate, starting a new job, or just painting someone's fence. Many things we do in our modern society are governed by contracts. I had the opportunity to sit down with contract law expert Mitchel McInnes at the University of Alberta, and he gave me the lowdown on contract law and how they work in our society.
Blind Justice with Wade Brown. Contracts.
Mitchel McInnes is a law professor at the University of Alberta. He discusses the basics of contract law in Canada.
A contract is almost invariably an exchange of promises. So the essence of a contract is that the parties are exchanging benefits. Each one has to give something, each one has to provide the counter consideration.
Do contracts have to be written down? And if not, how do you prove that they exist?
The only time you have to write it down is if it's dealing with an interest in land. If it's not dealing with an interest in land, even if it's $1 billion deal, and there have been examples of situations where it's a simple handshake and people are speaking the words, it's entirely enforceable. The difficulty you have there isn't in the possibility of creating a contract, it's in the difficulty in proving the contract. And very often it simply comes down to persuasiveness. If you can bring forth evidence to back up your story, that's good. But to a large extent, it's how people look on the stand, whether or not they look plausible, whether or not they look believable.
How can someone get out of a contract without being sued?
The only way that you can get out of it without being sued is to persuade me to enter into a new contract to cancel the old contract. So you might say that instead of painting the fence, that you'll cut the grass. And if I agree to that, then we've created a new contract to cancel the old contract. But the mere fact that you don't want to perform, or even that you can't perform, isn't my problem. That would be a breach of contract on your part.
Are there any provisions or statutes that protect people with disabilities?
There aren't any provisions specifically, but there is the doctrine of what's called unconscionability, which means that if I find you in a situation where you're vulnerable to exploitation, for whatever reason, and if I take advantage of that and drive a hard bargain, get a contract, then even if there hasn't been any breach on my end, even if the contract isn't defective, I gave you exactly what I promised I was going to give you, you're still allowed to rescind the contract. Rescission is a way simply to wind the contract back, make it as if it never was. And what you find in the unconscionability area is that it often arises as a result of a disability of one form or another. It can be simply a lack of understanding of English. It can be simply low intelligence. But it can also be any situation where you're vulnerable for whatever reason to somebody else's exploitation. The important point for people is simply to know that the laws exist and to insist on their rights.
There you have it. It is important to know what a big role contracts play in our lives. It is so much more than just signing something that you didn't bother reading.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoy Blind Justice, and if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to see in future installments, please send us an email at thisweek@ami.ca and put Blind Justice in the subject line.